This program has been made possible in part by Interweave, the handmade life, your craft community for books, magazines, videos, patterns, events, and more. On the web at interweavestore.com.
Take a look to my left here. I have a garment that's using smocking to create a defined waist. This is such an easy, gorgeous technique, and it belongs to sort of a whole family of stitches that I call wrapped stitches, or stitches that sort of use elongated stitches for maximum impact to gather other portions of the fabric. Along here, just under the bust of this fabric, which is knitted in a sort of an open gauge and a mohair yarn, so it's got this great transparent layering fabric that's nice for layering kind of effect. You can see this little detail where there's a sort of a pinch between every column of rib stitches, and that creates an effect that's very analogous to fabric smocking or hand embroidered smocking, when that pinch is sort of offset. And there are two different ways to do that. But first I'm going to show you some stitches that use elongated yarn overs to create interesting effects in the knitting. This is a wrapped bar stitch. And here I've just laid them out in columns of 3, 1, 2, 3, and then offset them by column after 3 repeats. But you can place these anywhere over your knitting for a really interesting textural woven kind of look. This is so easy to do. I'm going to show you. I'm going to place my next bar across these 3 stitches here. So I'm going to knit 1 stitch. Now I'm going to make a yarn over, which of course is just when you pass the yarn over your needle. Now I'm going to knit the next 3 stitches as normal. So now I've got 5 stitches on my needle. I've got the first stitch, the yarn over, and the next 3 stitches that I just knit. Now I'm going to take my left-hand needle, I'm going to insert it into the front of the yarn over, and then I'm just going to pass that yarn over all 3 stitches. And a yarn over is about exactly the right length to pass over 3 stitches, which is useful to know when you're planning to do this in other points in your fabric. So another yarn over, knit 1, 2, 3, and then pass that yarn over. And you'll get this great kind of little horizontal bar that just punctuates flat fabric and makes a great impact. The next yarn over stitch that I want to show you is not truly wrapped, but it's another creative use of yarn overs. This is not a cable, but it looks like a cable. We've got this little hole, and then we've got what looks like a twist, but you'll see exactly how that's formed. It's not actually involving any crossing stitches at all. So we'll set up the first 2 stitches, which are purls. Now the cable, the faux cable, is actually worked over these 3 stitches. I'm going to knit 1 stitch as normal. I'm going to make a yarn over. Then I'm going to slip my needle as if to knit into the first stitch, but not actually knit it. Also the second. Put them back on the left-hand needle, and then knit them through the back loop, which is of course a slip, slip, knit, decrease. So I've still got 3 stitches, and now I've got this small hole made by that yarn over. I'll show you that one more time. Purl the next 2 stitches, knit a stitch, yarn over, slip, slip, and knit through the back loop. Now on our return pass, we'll close that cable up just by purling those 3 stitches as normal. And you can see that you've got this great faux cable effect just by using a yarn over where you wouldn't expect one. Now I've got a swatch of just plain ribbing in front of me, and this is exactly the same base as we had in our gossamer smock tunic to our left. I've got a length of contrasting thread, and I'll show you how you would smock this by hand, which is absolutely a great option, and it can be really useful for when you want to knit a garment in ribbing and then smock it to fit. But I'm going to bring my tapestry needle up right next to a stitch on the outside of a rib column. I'm not splitting stitches, I'm going in between them. Now I'm going to go over and I'm going to put it into the fabric next to the outside of another rib column from right to left. And I'm going to pull tight. And I'm going to go back and do another pass so that it stays nice and firm. And now I'm going to travel over. So this is like doing sort of a long back stitch. Now I'm going to travel over 1, 2 rib columns. I'm not going to pull tight, but leave the yarn slack in the back. And I'm going to repeat my stitch to gather 2 rib columns together. Now I'm going to travel up and work in the opposite direction, offsetting my gathered stitches by 1 rib column. So with the needle and thread, I've smocked this fabric. So you can see, and you would continue all the way up. Now, you can do it that way, or you can actually do it while it's on the knitting needles, if you know exactly where your smocking is going to go. And this is really fun. I've got several stitches to knit first. So, and this is really just a knit two, purl 2 rib, as you can see here, and that just grows into the smocking. So I'm going to work this rib column right here, which is a knit on this side. Then I'm going to purl 2. And now this knit column, this purl column, and then this knit column all need to be gathered together because that's the progression from where they're coming from. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my right needle and I'm going to insert it all the way over here. So between the 6th and 7th stitch, so that's in the space immediately between this rib column and this purl column. So all the way over here, and if I turn it over, you can see that it's just coming from the front to the back of the work. Now with the yarn still held to the back of the work, I'm going to wrap it around my needle as if to make a stitch, and I'm going to pull it all the way through. Now I've got this loop of yarn on my needle. I'm going to put it onto the left needle, and then I'm going to knit it 2 together using that stitch and the first true stitch on the needle. And then I'll just work in my pattern. Purl 2 and knit 2. And that creates this little wrap, as neat as can be, right over those 2 rib stitches. And you can extend this to work over 3x3 columns of rib for a really big chunky smocking. You could do it over just 1x1 rib for very light, delicate smocking. We'll show you that one more time. So it's 2, 4, 6 stitches, needle into the back, pull a loop through, place it on the left-hand needle, and then knit 2 together and finish out your column.